Welcome to another edition of Dissecting Horror. I'm your host, Josh Milliken from Dread Central, and we're here tonight with the creatives of Parallel, a new sci-fi thriller being released this Friday, December 11th. I had a chance to see it, and it is great. You guys are going to love it. For a taste, before we jump into it, let's take a look at the trailer.
To our new house! Woo!
Well, I told you that house you guys are renting had bad energy.
This is a fake.
What?
Come check this out.
There's like a staircase back there. I'm pretty sure we lost our deposit.
Whoa.
Maybe someone lived up here like a squatter.
Whoa!
What the? What are you doing?
No, wait.
Oh my God.
I saw us.
Us here?
Yes, I watched this for like 15 minutes. You were gone for like 5 seconds.
Stop.
1 minute here equals 3 hours there.
Each time you go through, it's like it resets the timeline.
I think it's parallel universes.
Holy.
This is the biggest unfair advantage in human history.
We just steal other people's ideas.
I found it in an alt this morning.
Can I show you something?
Things could get messy.
Just because this is tragic doesn't mean we stop thinking.
He's not himself. He's breaking the rules.
We gotta do something about it.
I got a storage unit full of stuff that'll set off revolutions.
We'll take a world by storm. Something's behind all this.
But we all know that you ain't that good.
He's a real person.
Is he?
You've crossed a line.
We crossed the line.
That was the trailer for Parallel, coming to select theaters this Friday, December 11th, soon to follow on VOD and DVD. And I'm here with the team that made this film possible. Part of the team. It takes a lot of people to make an incredible film like this. But let me introduce our panelists. First and foremost, Isaac Ezban, the director. Welcome, Isaac.
Hi, thank you very much. Very happy to be here with all of you tonight.
Great to be here. Interested in learning more about you. Maybe talking about your first film, The Incident, which premiered at Cannes. Understand you're involved in some theaters, some drive-in theaters. Want to touch on that, but great to have you here. Great to have you here. Next, we have the writer of Parallel, Scott Blazak. Welcome.
Hi.
Great to have you here. Scott's coming to us from Philadelphia, so we're coming to you coast to coast, everywhere in between. Next, we have Georgia King, who played Lena in Parallel. Welcome, Georgia.
Hello, hi. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, it's a pleasure. We're so glad to have you here. And last but certainly not least, we have the composer, Edy Lan. How are you doing, Eddie?
I'm doing well. Thank you very much for the invitation. I'm very excited to be here.
We're so glad that you could make it. It means a lot to our community, to our readers, and to us. This is something of a reunion for you all, and it's something that we're happy to be able to share with the horror community. Isaac, fantastic film, Parallel. Just watched it a couple nights ago, and really thinking a lot about it. First I want to give our readers a little bit of the Cliff's Notes on who you are and what you've done. I understand you were a novelist before you even became a filmmaker, and you made almost a dozen short films, won a ton of awards, and then you got into feature filmmaking. It sounds like you're living the dream, and sounds like you're a real creative engine. Tell us a little bit about your journey and yourself.
Well, thank you for that introduction. You definitely made it sound like way cooler than it really is. So that's what an introduction should do, and I love that. But yeah, I mean, that's pretty much true. Everything you said. I, you know, everyone gets to films from a different way. You know, some people approach it because of the acting, some people approach it because of the cinematography, the cameras, the music, the post-production. For me, it was always about the stories. You know, I conceived myself a film director, but I conceived myself even more as a storyteller. I actually was educated as a storyteller from my grandmother, from my mother's side. She is an oral storyteller, and even from when I was like 4 or 5 years old, I used to, just tell stories orally. I gave a lot of presentations in the radio, in theaters in Mexico, and eventually, and always movies was my favorite thing in the world. This is gonna sound cliche, but I always wanted to make movies ever since I can recall. If you see videos of everyone in kindergarten, everyone is dressed up what they want to be when they're older, and you have like the guy who wants to be the policewoman, the astronaut, the fireman, and it all looks like the dream of a kid. And I was a filmmaker with my camera, even from when I was like 5 years old. So people now, they tell me, oh, you actually did it. Then eventually, yes, it was always for me about the stories. I was always the storyteller, even in high school, and all that. Every time there was like a ceremony, a graduation, whatever, I would tell a story. And then suddenly in high school, it was, suddenly it's not so cool to be the storyteller. There's like the bullying and all that, and I kind of hid it within myself, but I was still a storyteller, and I was just writing. And that's when I did 4 short novels in my high school and college years. And then once I decided I was going straight for film, together with a partner I used to have at the time, we created this project called Clip of the Week, in which we did one very short film every week. We came up with it on Monday, we shot it on Wednesday, we edited, and we released it every Sunday. This was just, by the way, when Facebook was starting, and you could create like a Facebook group and send your short to everyone. And we just did 50 shorts in a year. They were really bad, by the way. I mean, I was the actor in some of them, or my father or my brother, but we didn't care so much about the production quality. For us, it was all about the challenge of, okay, one story every week, no matter what. You need to do one story. So it really helped us to create a muscle on just thinking in terms of visual storytelling and creating stories. And then we decided those short films were never going to take us to any festival or anything. So we expanded to Short of the Month. Now a more proper short film with a proper crew, proper actors. And we just did 12 shorts in a year. And those actually, 2 of those shorts played Cannes Film Festival, one in the Morelia International Film Festival in Mexico. They kind of took us around to festivals. And then we just made it Movie of the Year. So we just went from Clip of the Week to Short of the Month to Movie of the Year. And then I made The Incident and The Similars, my first 2 feature films. I was always all about sci-fi and horror. I grew up loving the Twilight Zone. That was like my biggest reference. And after that, I really wanted to jump on someone else's story and kind of make it my own. And I read a lot of scripts during that year. And it's hard for somebody who has written his own scripts to suddenly now grab someone else's script and feel personally connected to it. And many scripts I read, they didn't feel like the right fit. They felt like either too generic or too, I don't know, like I didn't feel personally connected to them. And then when I read Parallel, I was like, whoa, I need to make this film. Like, I need to make this film. This is amazing. Without taking any credit from Scott, who is an amazingly gifted screenwriter, it felt like something I could have written in terms of it related to all the terms I really love, all the things I really love, which I'm sure that's another question. So I won't talk so much about that now.
Well,
but I fell in love with the script immediately.
Yeah, I mean, you already mentioned the Twilight Zone, and it's hard to look at Parallel without thinking about the Twilight Zone. And that's kind of a great segue. great praises for Scott. And Scott, you know, the story really grabs you immediately. I can see why Isaac was so instantly enamored by the screenplay. You know, because we've seen the haunted mirror trope in horror, but to take a mirror and edge it closer to sci-fi, you use the line about, you know, any significantly advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. So you're kind of putting it in a more grounded reality, again, something very reminiscent of the Twilight Zone. Where did this idea come from, and how did it develop from an idea to a screenplay?
Yeah, like I think the first hint at the story was I was reading an article about the way that certain people go on a gap year, where after high school they'll like travel Europe for a year. And the article got into how people would kind of reinvent themselves, and they would act in a way that they couldn't at home, and they'd try out like a new personality. And it was great because then you could come home a year later, and if you screwed up or if you didn't like who you were trying to be, it was no big deal because no one knew, you know, what you did on a backpacking trip. And so that was, and that article just, you know, was really interesting. And then I think that just kind of fits nicely in with like parallel universes, with the idea of like you could go in there, you could do whatever you want. And of course, like that's, you know, that's a great way to kind of look at character and figure out like how would each of your characters basically use this ability to go into another world and act however you want, and then come back and like it doesn't matter what you did. So you really, I mean, it's kind of like a video game, obviously. So that was kind of one of the like initial thoughts that kind of got me going. And then I'd also say that like I like the idea of kind of like startup people who like small company startups who kind of bet it all and then it kind of falls apart. And I think there's kind of there's a similarity between startup culture and like filmmaking culture, whereas it's like you're with your friends and you bet it all on the line and like it's a great rush. But then like at the same time, the odds are horrible and like 98% of it is going to be failure. And then there's those awkward times where you have to break away from maybe you have to break away and be the guy that says like, I just can't do it anymore. And that's kind of where the story starts out. And I just really like that kind of tech culture. And then I also like the idea of like how this is a technology finding this mirror that will take you places to other parallel universes. And that's a technology. And so look at it through the lens of startup culture, like the people in San Francisco, and how would they approach that? Because they know how to like deal with tech and how to, and so there's a little bit of a parallel to like, if you make Facebook, you have this tremendous tool, and then how do you approach it? And that's what Silicon Valley is all about. So kind of using that to kind of tell a sci-fi story, I also really liked.
That's fantastic. You know, I really like, one of the things I like about Parallel is it's so well thought out. It's more complicated than your traditional sci-fi films, or maybe, you know, single concept sci-fi. This idea of a mirror going to parallel dimensions, I mean, it's not even really quite that simple. You know, there's almost like you need like a rule book to truly understand the nuances. You find yourself learning about, you know, the intricacies of this mirror as the film progresses. And I don't think it's a spoiler if you want to kind of, you know, tell people who are going to be seeing this movie, give them a taste of like, you know, the different ways you can use the mirror and how it's different for one person going in alone versus two people, and how it's a different place at different times. Can you give us a little Cliff's Notes overview?
I can try. I can say that, like, you know, part of the writing process is you really do write a Bible, you know, that it kind of explains what the technology is. Because of course, when you're telling a story, you've really got to stick to your rules, because the audience hates if you try to change anything at all.
Absolutely.
So I have the Bible, and I mean, to kind of sum it up, like the mirror takes you to different parallel universes. And while you're in the parallel universe, time travels at 1/180th. So basically, I think it maps out to like, if you go through the mirror into a parallel universe and you spend an hour and then you come back, you spend only like a minute has gone by here. And that's kind of an interesting wrinkle that that makes things a little bit more complicated than if it was just like you just go through and then you come back immediately. And the other kind of important part about the universes is that like they're 99.9% the same as ours, and so you have to actually hunt for the differences, and that's a lot of what the movie's about.
Yeah, I love too how you kind of like even though you've really summed up what it's about, and it's very self-contained, you do pull in a few phrases of popular culture conspiracy theories like the Mandela effect and doppelganger theories and things like that. And I love how those are just like sprinkled in there as well. All in all, just a really fantastic story, and I'm really excited for people to check it out. I've got some questions for you coming in a bit, but I want to move on next to talk to Georgia for a little bit. Georgia, how are you?
I'm so good. I'm really, really fascinated also to hear, Scott, I didn't know that was the inspiration for the story. I love that. The art.
That was really interesting too, because I never would have thought that. I would have thought you'd say, it came from like a tech idea or an episode of the Twilight Zone, but the whole idea of just being a new person without consequences for a bit, trying it out, it is really interesting.
Yeah, I love that. I wonder if that's slightly what resonated with reading the script the first time, was like you found yourself asking, like, what would I do in this situation?
Right?
You're like, and what is going to happen to these guys next? Which is really cool.
So you're obviously enamored with the script almost immediately as well then, yeah?
Oh yeah. I think I was just really in love with the idea of this very grounded, relatable world at the beginning, like the underdog entrepreneurs who are really struggling. And then it goes into this wild, like endlessly, limitlessly amazing place where there's just like such a huge adventure ahead of them. And they kind of, they get, the golden ticket in a way initially. And then it's like the unraveling of how that kind of is destructive for each of them, personally, is really fascinating.
Absolutely. And your character Lena, she's the one that, whether you're a man or a woman, your character is the one that audience members, I think, are going to identify with the most. You're in this group of friends, and like with any group of friends, I don't think it's a stereotype. I think it's true. You have people who are on one side of the spectrum and another side of the spectrum, and in parallel, you have characters who are very, guarded and want to play it safe. And you have other characters who are willing to play it real fast and loose and push the limits. And then we have Lena, who's kind of like right in the middle. And the whole time, I felt kind of like, well, if Lena's doing it, it must be okay. You're kind of like the moral compass of the film. Is that how you felt as the character, or is that some direction that Isaac gave you?
Oh, it's a great question. I felt like Lena was really relatable because, we all just want to be seen, I think. And I think, on the most sort of basic level, like we all want to feel valuable, and we want to feel like we have something worthwhile to give other people. And, I think for all the kind of like playful, goofy sort of like stuff that she does at the beginning, she's really hiding her insecurities and her low self-esteem, and she desperately wants to feel like she has something to offer. And I think we all want to feel like we have something to offer, and so her journey to finding it is one that no spoilers, but is not probably the way that she would ultimately have liked to have gotten there.
Yeah, well, your characters, the story arc is very, very well done, and it's the heart and soul of the film in many ways, I think. But all in all, it's fantastic. I'm really excited for people to check it out. I want to pivot over to Edy for a minute now. Edy, you composed the film. You were actually nominated for a Latin Grammy Award in 2017. So you've been doing this for a while. You've built quite a solid reputation. Born in Mexico City, big fan of the Twilight Zone as well. Common thread through everything. The soundtrack in parallel is really important. On a cinematic level, there were things that were done that kind of gave you clues as to which reality you were in, which dimension you were in, even when it came to the people, there were cinematic cues that told you whether someone was from our dimension or from outside our dimension. Is that something you were conscious of as well as you scored the film? Were there audio cues to let us know throughout the film whether we were seeing something of our dimension or something otherworldly?
Yes, there are small cues. We talked about it, Isaac and I, as we often do, and we didn't want it to be so in your face, of course, because that would ruin the film. But there's definitely certain sounds and motifs that are there for the B people, sure. And but I think it's for me the score. One of the most important parts of the score for me was that it was not just your typical sci-fi score in terms of like when Isaac and I discussed the score, we were talking about doing sort of an in-between approach of what we've done in the past, which is more geared towards classic film scoring, right? But at the same time, this film has a little bit of a genre blend, you know? So
absolutely,
it was very important to not have a sci-fi score. It is sci-fi, but you know what I mean, right? It's not completely sci-fi. It plays a lot to the drama. And to Scott's credit, that I think that's one of the strengths of the story of the film, and that is why I think people think of the Twilight Zone when they mention this, because the Twilight Zone was all about that. It was sci-fi that meant something, you know, and it's about the characters, and it's about how we react to things as people, very universal stories. So I think that was a very important aspect of the score.
Absolutely. And one thing that you can already take away from this panel, if nothing else, is that if you like the Twilight Zone, chances are you're going to like Parallel, because the people involved with making the film all seem to have a reverence for the Twilight Zone. Oh, fantastic. Yeah. Well, listen, we've got a ton of questions coming in, questions for each of you. So I'm going to, ask you some of these, let some other people get some thoughts in. First, for Isaac, this is your English language feature film debut. How is making this film different from your previous films, the ones you've made in Mexico?
Well, this is, and I always say this, by the way, every time I introduce this film in every Q&A, in every festival. So I'm glad I can say it now to all of you, because in a way, I'm kind of like introducing the film that you will all be watching this weekend. This is a film I keep very close to my heart. Obviously, every film you keep close to your heart, but this is one very special for me, because it represents many first times, many firsts. It's the first film I do in English, first film I do that I didn't write, although, like I said, I felt very personally connected to the material. I worked closely to Scott for over a year with the script, so I feel it like my own, but I didn't write it originally. It's the first studio film I make. It's the first film outside of Mexico, and it's also the first film I do with completely a different crew I had never worked with, except for Edy. He's actually the only lucky guy who has gotten to work, lucky or unlucky, who I've taken aboard with me on all my 3 films. So probably you could say he's the one collaborator that knows me the better. What?
It's still in the air. We'll see if it's good or bad.
It's still in the air. It's still in the air. Edy is waiting to see how the box office results go probably this weekend, and then he will know. But yeah. So this film meant a lot of firsts for me. It definitely meant growing as a person and as a filmmaker, exploring how people do things in another. It was completely different coming from Mexico, shooting 2 movies, and then arriving on Vancouver. I mean, in a way, it's kind of like the same. I think the way movies are done in a professional way. I mean, if you work in a professional movie, it will be pretty much similar everywhere. But at the same time, we shot this in Vancouver, and the Vancouver has a very growing, great industry of shooting films and TV series. They shoot a lot of things there, and for example, there are many differences to the way I used to work. But for example, we had a very limited days of shooting. Like when I found out that we were shooting for 23 days, I was like, what? 23 days. That's like, my first film that was a fraction of the budget of Parallel, we shot 24 days. And then my second film, we shot 30 days. So I couldn't believe we were shooting 23 days. But then I actually discovered that 23 days of Vancouver are equal to like 40 days in Mexico, because in Mexico, if the call is at 7, you might start shooting at 9:30. Here in Vancouver, and I think Georgia, you can talk for this. If the call was at 7, we were shooting like 7:20, right? Like we had like 20 minutes to talk about. Yeah, we're placing the camera here, there, and all the machinery and all all the equipment, everything was ready for the next set. I was impressed by how fast we were moving. I never felt a single day that I needed more time. So it's basically more money spent on every day, but to make every day more productive, or so in a way that was one of the differences, of course. But then in the post-production, in the editing, it was the first time I experienced having producers involved with me on the cut, and having focus groups, screenings, and all that. And that was actually a great experience for me, because everyone at Bronze Studios was always super respectful to me and my vision for the film. I would say during shooting the movie, they basically let me do what me and the actors wanted to do. Sometimes they approach with notes, like, we want to see this reaction from this actor, but they never forced me into doing anything. And then in the editing, they always joined with comments, with notes, but it was always a collaborative process until the very end. Like, they always respected my vision. And in the end, I could say, I think the final cut with the producer's involvement was better than the original director's cut I had. So you hear some horror stories about producers not letting the director be in the edit room and all that, and this wasn't the case at all. This was a very collaborative case up to the very end. So that was also something new for me, to have to collaborate with a studio, with notes, with focus groups, and all that. It was all a great experience where I learned many things. So I'm very happy, and I feel very lucky and fortunate to. And I kind of feel nostalgic now that I'm talking about it. Actually, the day we finished shooting Parallel was December 11, 2016, and that's the day it's coming out, exactly 4 years after the day we finished shooting. So that's absolutely crazy. It's almost like fate. And I felt I connected very well with our 4 leads, with Georgia and Mark and Amel and Martin, with Karim, our DP, with the producers, with everyone. I just feel the producers had this really great vision of, let's bring a filmmaker from Mexico, a DP from Toronto, an actress from the UK, but you live in LA, an actor from the UK who also lives in LA, another actor from Sweden, and another actor from Canada, and let's put them all together in this building in Vancouver, and let's make a movie. And we just became super friends. Everyone, we used to hang out over the weekends. I think of all the movies I've made, it's the one where I felt I connected more with the cast, and we became also friends, and I kind of miss everyone right now. So yeah, it was a great experience.
Well, fantastic. I really enjoy hearing you discuss it. It's obviously a piece of you, a part of you, and you obviously put so much of yourself into it. But let me tell you, it shows. It shows, because I don't think anyone's going to look at Parallel and think, okay, this is a film where they did it quickly, where they rushed it through. It's so well thought out, from Scott's scripts to your cast's great performances and your very astute directing. It's just really
also,
great to hear you say.
So something I want to say about that,
Sure.
Josh, is that part of the essence of the film is that you really believe that these 4 guys have been friends all their lives, like our 4 leads. And we watched movies like Chronicle, like Shallow Grave, like Flatliners as references of this. I mean, for me, Parallel was always like a classic story of playing with the fire from the gods, a classic story of these 4 friends joining together, and how they play with this power that is too tempting and that ends up destroying them without giving away too much. So it was very important that you felt the friendship. And I think you do feel it. I think our 4 leads did a great work, making sure this camaraderie really shows up on the screen, because it was for real in real life while we were shooting the movie. So that was actually pretty cool. Yeah.
So glad we did get on so well. It's genuinely like we became really good friends, all of us, and I'm so relieved, because those scenes of like being long-term friends can feel quite icky and false if you don't have that feeling. And I mean, I also wanted to add really quick that, like, aside from the incredible script that Scott wrote, I really wanted to do this job because of Isaac. Like, I watched the incident and was blown away. I mean, Isaac has such an incredible point of view and such a incredible vision. And I mean, I watched that movie years ago, Isaac, and I still think about it and see images from that film. Considering how much we watch every day, I feel like that's a testament to who you are as a storyteller.
Oh, thank you so much.
And,
thank you so much.
Isaac came with like all these movie references for us and all these ideas and so much passion, so many thoughts of how he wanted to do this film, but was also able to and invited our input, which was that's like the best, when a director is able to like and welcomes like other people's ideas and really does collaborate. It was really special.
Oh, fantastic. And all of that
so
comes
much.
through.
That means a lot, Georgia. Thank you so much. Yeah.
So Parallel 2, should we get going, guys?
Start now.
Let's do it. I mean, let's have Scott. I mean, for when do you think you can have it, Scott? Maybe before Christmas, and we start.
No problem.
Working on it. Yeah.
hey, write a cameo for me, okay? Write me a cameo in there, so I'll come out for a weekend. Edy, I just wanted to let you know you're getting a ton of love on Facebook. What do I got here? Edy Lan, one of the best Mexican composers out there right now. Go and listen to his work in Isaac's other films. Greetings from Mexico. So you're getting a lot of love.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you.
No, some great stuff. And also a lot of great praises for Scott here too. Scott, do you like to fish?
Yeah, actually, I actually like to fly fish now.
Someone knows that because they asked how fishing informs your screenwriting, if at all.
Wow, it's a very specific question.
That's an amazing question.
That's a tough one. I might need to think about that one.
Well, all right. I can give you another one while you're thinking about that. Someone is curious about how long it took you to write Parallel and what your writing process is like. I think that's something a lot of writers are curious about.
Yeah, it was funny because when you guys reached out to me about this panel, I had to I thought well, I should go back into the old folder on my hard drive and take a look, because I haven't these films take a long time, and so you kind of forget the process. And I think I found an Act 1 draft that was 2014, in the summer of 2014. So I think it was written over 2014, 2015 or something like that, and then sent out and set up with Bron 2015 or something like that. So I think the writing process.
I got it for the first time in May 2015. I think that's what I read it in August. Yeah.
So the writing process itself I think it was around a year, starting from the initial idea, the log line idea, and then the outlining. So the process is kind of probably, I mean, for this one, it was so rules bound that I did a lot of kind of writing out character bios and also kind of a bio for the mirror and what the mirror does and the world.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. Prior to even really.
I'd love to read that. I'd love to check that out.
Yeah. I'd love to hear some of the mirror's bio as well.
well, you got to, because if not, you just get lost in the math of it. And then I think, then it's kind of an outline, which really looks like a beat sheet. And I would say probably a month or two, kind of beating out all the movies, all of the actual story. I kind of work with my manager a lot, where he kind of gives me feedback as I kind of, work on half of an act. And then we go to draft, and the whole, starting from there is probably about 9 months of writing a draft and then kind of revising. And then I think it's just important that when you go to draft and you write real pages, that like you don't get married to them, and you realize that at some point you may have to go back to outline, because you realize that like even though I wrote 60 pages, like it's really not working so much, and maybe I need to go back to the outline to fix the problem and not try to like tweak my pages. Because if you just go around trying to like tweak little lines of dialogue, you're really not fixing the actual story structure problem that you have. And like screenplays are very much about structure. Like the dialogue, it's like by the time you have a really good screenplay, dialogue can change a little bit, and it like doesn't really change the movie, because like the character and the story itself are like what the like spine of the piece are. And the dialogue is, I mean, I think I just heard someone say recently that like dialogue is basically just character being like spoken out loud. So you can kind of like change that in a really good screenplay. But that's kind of it, like outline, drafts, and then a lot of revisions. And then during the rewrites, I mean, I do like to have my goals and not get lost in just like everything that could change, and just be like, these are the 3 priority things that I'm trying to fix in this rewrite, because I don't want to get lost in like coming up with a great one-liner on page 12 when really that, again, that's not really, you know, the biggest part. And Isaac, definitely, when he came on the project, he had some like really good notes about important character arcs, for sure. I think that when the script was set up originally, I don't think that even all 4 character arcs were really there. And Isaac came in with Braun too, and they had some really great notes. And then I think like one of the goals of like when you're doing a rewrite is you get these great notes from your director and the producers. You also, in the back of your head, know that there's always things that irked you. Like even when we sent the script out, you were always kind of like, I don't really love that beat. I don't really love that line. I don't really love that scene. And so sometimes you try to say like, these are great notes from Isaac. But I also like, I'm going to kind of incorporate that note. And then if it's really great, if I can also fix some other things that like no one's even mentioning, but like I kind of feel like has always been not so great. And then, you know, that's what you try to do. And then you basically hand it over to the director, and you still know there's things that aren't perfect. And then the director you know, which is great, is when he like solves your problems and you kind of like see it in the first film, in your first view, and you're like, you know, he solved that little thing that I never really loved. And that's a great feeling.
I bet.
In this movie.
Yeah, I mean, you hear about writers feeling like directors and or producers didn't get their work or didn't do it justice. Hearing you talk not just about how well Isaac connected with your material, but how he influenced it and made it better. That's the beauty of collaboration, isn't it? That we create something, you know, better than we could have on our own. That it's better for having more people involved.
And I want to say something about that, Josh, that definitely when I wait, can you hear me? Because I see everyone a little frozen. Oh, you can hear me fine. Okay, great.
Absolutely.
When I felt I had gone to a parallel universes, because for me, Eddie, Georgia, and Scott are just frozen, but they will move eventually. Yeah. I was going to say the moment when I joined this project, something I was very much captivated by in the script that I felt was very original was that the film had this, I always call it the classic meets the modern element. Because in a way it was kind of like a classic story, like, you know, we've mentioned the Twilight Zone as a huge inspiration. All these classic stories of playing with the fire from the gods are very Twilight Zone-y. But also it's a story that took place in the world of, you know, social media and mobile apps and entrepreneurs and startups and ambitious people who want to be the next Mark Zuckerberg or Steve Jobs. And I remember doing my pitch to the producers at Braun, and I just told them the movie I want to do is Flatliners meets The Social Network. And they love that idea, and I truly think that is the movie we've made, and you'll see it this weekend. But in a way, the movie. So I'm talking about this because it refers to what Scott said about how we work together in the script and the notes I gave. I wanted each of the characters to have a very specific journey, more kind of like Flatliners, where every character wants to use the mirror for something else. So we kind of made sure that was very clear in the script. But also, in working with Karim, our director of photography, in all the references in how we shot the movie, it was always the classic meets the modern. So some scenes look like straight out of a Twilight Zone episode, or maybe even an Alfred Hitchcock movie, or Brian De Palma, or Lucio Fulci, or something, something that looks giallo. And then at the same time, some other moments might have montages with quick cuts that maybe resemble more like a Darren Aronofsky or Danny Boyle kind of movie, So in a way, the classic meets the modern. It's something that it's in the DNA of Parallel. And it's something also we work with in the music with Edy, by the way, which it's why it was such a challenging to make the music for this film, because in my other movies, it was always very clear, in The Incident, we want to go completely classic, creepy, but also emotional, more in a Michael Giacchino kind of way. The Similars, we want to go straight, kind of like a Bernard Herrmann homage, Twilight Zone, 60s. But then in Parallel, we had these moments that are very classic, and we had this moment that, so Edy had to do from a huge classical orchestra to electronic, more modern music in other parts. So I would say that the classic meets the modern is something that I think was from the paper already, from your initial script, Scott, and it's something that I try to take that kind of like the flag of the movie and make sure that was clear in all the elements, in the production design, in the music, in the cinematography, even in the editing, in all that. Yeah.
Well, it's definitely there. The story and the setup and the mirror all harken back to something older, where storytelling was more prevalent, and the startup idea and some of the technologically metaphysical aspects are very modern. So it was a fantastic combination of both. Great segue to Edy. Back to Edy. Couple questions for you. I'm going to give you a couple at once. How would you describe the soundtrack to Parallel in a few words? And then someone else asks, did you have a favorite scene musically, and why?
Interesting. I think what Isaac said is the perfect definition of the score. It's the classic meets the modern stuff, because there is a classic element to the scoring in the DNA, in the way we use certain themes and then certain aspects of the thematic material. But it also, we couldn't make it so that it was too big for the picture. We wanted to keep it grounded, and that was a challenge. But how would we keep it grounded without losing the classic element, which in its nature is bigger in general, So, but yeah, I think that would be the description. And my favorite scene, there's a couple. The first time they cross to the other side, I think it's one of my favorites for sure. Then when Lina is going to the woods, that's pretty cool, because that's a pretty Hitchcockian moment, for sure. And we love that. Isaac and I think that was our first point of agreement when we started working back in 2014. We were both Bernard Herrmann and Twilight Zone fans. So yeah.
Well, clearly, it's a creative connection that is fruitful, and I hope you guys keep working together on everything moving forward. Georgia, I haven't forgotten about you. Plenty of questions coming in for you. Dread Central's a horror site, so we got some Ryan Murphy fans out there. Someone asks, a lot of people know you from The New Normal. Was there ever a piece of advice Ryan Murphy gave you on that show that stuck with you?
Oh, what a good question. Well, I mean, it's funny. Ryan Murphy, it changed my life because I was living in the UK until I met him. And then I pretended I was an American to audition for the show. And he has such a strong vision. He knew that he wanted me for that role. He got me, to move across the world very easily. And I think he just gave me confidence. He didn't fuss over things. He knew that I was right for the role, and his certainty made me feel really settled and good in that role. It was really cool.
That's great to hear. You've been lucky with the directors you've been working with so far.
so lucky.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Someone else is writing, noting that you did a song in Kerry Russell's film, Austin Land, The Last Rose of Summer. So you're a singer, and are you going to be doing more singing, putting out an album? What's up?
Well, for anyone that does know that film and the absurd character I play, I do a bit in that movie where I sing terribly.
I don't believe that for a second.
That's an idea I pitched out. But fun fact, my mom is an opera singer, so I should be able to sing or at least hold a tune. So I'm going to start getting lessons with her, I think, over Zoom. We'll see.
Fantastic. Here's one that's just for everyone. What was your favorite part of working on Parallel? Just whoever feels it.
For me, it was definitely working with Isaac again, because I think over the years, our collaboration has grown. There's more confidence. And I think this is a movie that we've collaborated the most, in the sense that, like he said, it wasn't as clear-cut as, like, let's say, The Similars, where it's definitely a throwback to the sci-fi of the 50s and the 60s. And there was a lot more him having to trust me sometimes, or me having to listen to him discuss things that he was worried about. And to Isaac's, Isaac is a director that really likes collaborating. He always says that a good director is a good listener, and he surrounds himself with experts of each field, and that's why he's getting them right. And he is true to that all the time. So sometimes you get to work with directors that are more authoritarian, let's say, and that's fine. But Isaac is really someone that's very interesting to collaborate with. And also, he has a huge catalog of films. Like, his knowledge of film and scores, it's pretty impressive. So music for him is a very, very important aspect of his films. And as a composer, and I consider myself a filmmaker first. If I wasn't a composer, I would probably try to be a director. So we share that love for film, and that is something that Isaac really nurtures.
Oh, fantastic.
Oh, thank you so much for saying all that, Edy. And I agree 100% with everything you said in terms of how well we collaborated together. This is a film where I definitely trusted you more. I mean, you earned it after those two great scores, but you know, what I like about working with Edy is that he's very obsessive, very methodic. I remember when we did The Similars, he didn't sleep every Friday to have the music ready in time, you know. So that's how obsessive and methodic is. Oh, and my wife just brought in popcorn. That's great.
Lucky you.
To make
Did
this
you
even
bring
better.
enough to share?
So you don't want some. Yeah, working with Edy, he's definitely has that obsessive component, which I very much relate to. And by the way, I have to say, Edy and I are also really good friends in terms of, like you said, I love music in movies. Sometimes I'm just driving and I'm just hearing scores. That's like what I hear. Like, and sometimes I get off a great movie I loved, and I send Edy a voice note, just like singing the score of the movie. And he always tells me, "What are you saying? Like, those are not even notes." Like, or like when we argue about if Star Wars has a new score or not, a new theme or not, he would sing me the music. I would sing him back. So we do that all the time, and we did that a lot in parallel. But I mean, sorry, the question was, I just wanted to say all that about the collaboration with Edy, but the question about what was my favorite part of doing parallel. Whoa, I mean, I had so many favorite moments. Of course,
right.
The moment where I confirmed I was going to be directing this movie is not only one of my favorite moments of parallel, but one of my favorite moments in my life, of course. but the moment where I met all the actors in person, the moment when we started shooting, in the shooting, there were so many great moments where I couldn't believe I was watching, like the way these four actors really got inside the flesh of these characters was astounding for me, and I couldn't believe there were many moments in the set where I was just like absolutely blown away by the performances. And I used to get at night every day and just watch stills and watch the material again, and I was like, I can't believe this is a movie I'm directing, and like I was so excited about that. Obviously, seeing the first cut of the movie or the last cut played together, see it for the first time with audience, and this is obviously a very exciting moment this weekend, seeing the movie coming out. So I know I probably said like 10 moments, but it's hard for me to choose just one.
Yeah, obviously.
I just wanna say something real quick. That is Isaac. Isaac is a very, very passionate guy, as you could probably hear and see. And I think that is that is what makes people happy to work.
Absolutely, and it comes through in the final product. Georgia, favorite parallel memories?
I was gonna tentatively ask if I could have two, but now that Isaac's done like 20.
Right.
I would say, earlier you said like the best collaboration is when you come together and you kind of elevate each other's work. And for me, that sums up this movie. As you guys, could see, Isaac has so much passion and energy and drive, and it was infectious. Like, Isaac, you were talking earlier about like, oh, the days were, we had a shorter time period, but like it was a really, efficient production. It's like you were at the head of that. Like I felt like Isaac every day, like it didn't matter if it was 5 a.m. and it rained every day except for like 4 days when we had a snowstorm, and you would like Isaac was like invincible, just like there ready to listen. He listened so much, as well as bringing so many, he already had all these ideas for us to like all these great shots and this great kind of choreography for us and these beautiful sets, and the DP was amazing, but then would also take in our ideas and we would work as a team. And the the script Scott wrote was also a huge aspect, because we got to play with these very detailed characters where it wasn't just like the nice guy and the bad guy. We all are heroes and villains. And in this movie, we have these light moments and we have these dark moments. And so from an acting point of view, to work with the cast and Isaac and the crew was really the highlight. The acting from the other guys was it's like playing tennis. It's like if you're playing someone who's really good, you want to play as well as you can. And it just felt like everyone had the same passion as Isaac. He led the passion, and I think everyone else was like quick to follow. And we would like all hang out in the like hotel lobby and like go over the script and like discuss stuff about our characters. And it was just like we wanted to keep talking about it. It wasn't like we went to work and we worked and then we like went home and I don't know, watched telly. We like just wanted to be in this movie the whole time. And so it was challenging and infectious. It was really cool.
Oh wow, that's wonderful to hear. And like I've said a few times, it shows in the film. It all comes through. Scott, were you on set at all during filming?
Yeah, I did go out for the first week of filming.
So incredible!
I was there, which was great experience.
So tell us some of your favorite parallel memories.
Yeah, I think it was a great project for me in that like it was an original spec that got turned into a movie with like great input from the director and the production company. So that's kind of a rare treat. So that was great. And the thing that I would point to is I really loved how in the movie, when I saw like the first cut of the movie, like how the story of sort of the like darker side of parallel universes and like what it could be to a character who, if you're going into other universes and you're interacting with your friends again and again and again, and how that can kind of mess with your head, and or if you wind up in another universe and how that might kind of mess with your head. Like, you know, we were aiming for kind of some darker and some twisted things to happen. And I think Isaac and the actors did a phenomenal job of kind of like making that hit home in the second half of the movie.
Absolutely.
I just want to tell a funny anecdote of the week that Scott came to visit. The week that Scott came to visit the set, because we just mentioned that. Just exactly, I think it was 2 days before we started shooting, producers give us the news, hey, Isaac, you had 25 days of shoot, now you have 23. I'm like, what? Like, this is literally 2 days before we start shooting. And you know how it is, you know, there's always budget concerns. There are always, I mean, I come from doing films in Mexico with a very limited budget where you always feel the money is not enough. And I was under the impression of, okay, now I'm doing a big film in Vancouver, like an American film. I'm sure now we're going to have a huge budget. And I mean, compared to what we had in Mexico, it was a bigger budget. But at the same time, I feel this always happens even if you're doing Avengers. You know, like it's never enough, and there are always money problems. So it came to a point where because we couldn't go over budget, we had to cut 2 days of shoot 2 days before we start shooting. So I'm like, what do we do? What can we cut? And then next morning, Scott shows up. Hey, I'm the writer. I just came here to relax, enjoy, look at how my script is getting, you know, actually made into a picture. And I'm like, no, my friend, you didn't came here to relax.
Get to work.
You need to actually deliver a new script by tomorrow, cutting all the scenes. And that night, I remember, I mean, that's kind of like one of my most, you know, you always have those nights when you are nervous. I mean, the night before you start shooting or 2 nights before, it's always impossible to sleep. You have to drug and I mean drug like sleeping pills. You have to drug yourself to be able to sleep. Now, on top of that, I have in those 2 days, I have to cut scenes, to cut 2 days of shooting. So I wouldn't have made it if it wasn't for Scott being there, because, you know, he helped with many ideas. Also, Karim helped with ideas. And at the end, what we ended up cutting, I don't really miss it at all. I think something we could have even cut in the editing. So, you know, that's how it happens sometimes when you have limitations. That actually helps your creativity to think better and to get rid of what you don't need. But I'm definitely, if you are ever a screenwriter and you're not sure if you should go visit the set or not, because you might feel, you know, oh, what they're doing to my work, how that's not how I imagine it, or that you should definitely go, because A, you will enjoy it, but B, you never know if they're actually going to need
right.
you. We actually needed Scott. That week you came, that's the week we had to make those cuts. So that's amazing to have you there. Yeah,
fantastic. It was all very serendipitous, and what a just wonderful collaboration. We're running out of time, so I'm gonna put us in the lightning round before we go. I'm gonna go around to each of you and give you a chance to talk about what you're working on next and ask you for some final thoughts about Parallel, opening this Friday, December 11th. Let's start with Edy.
Yeah.
What are you working on next?
I just finished a picture called The Containment, and I'm starting on one called Nomad. I have an album releasing on the 18th, which is an orchestral album with a lot of collaborations with Carlos Santana and Steve Vai.
Oh, fantastic.
And it's coming out in Dolby Atmos, so it's going to be pretty cool.
Fantastic. And give us some final thoughts about Parallel.
Well, I'm really happy to get to see it this Friday. Working in Parallel was a great experience. I love the film, and I'm just happy.
Fantastic. Georgia King. What are you working on next?
I actually, you know, Isaac earlier was talking about like growing up and wanting to be a filmmaker. I wanted to originally be a flower, but then I also wanted to be a director and a writer. And I actually sort of accidentally fell into acting in my gap year, working in a cheese shop. And so anyway, long story long, I have been sidestepping into writing and directing the last few years. And so I'm actually gearing up to direct my first feature next year in the spring, written by somebody else.
Fantastic.
wonderful writer called Max Tax. It's a script from the Blacklist. So I'm super excited about that. I'm meant to be directing a music video on December 11th, but we had to push because of COVID. I know everyone in the world is making a podcast, but I have a really cool podcast coming out next year that I'm recording, and developing a TV show, writing something with Mark O'Brien, which has been an absolute joy. He is a multi-talented human, and that's probably it. Hoping to.
I mean, that's plenty. Wow, you have so much going on.
Like when do you sleep, or
exactly?
Have you enjoyed this panel?
Do you sleep?
Tonight, you know? Yeah.
Oh wow. Well, we can't wait to see what you do next. You've made a fan out of me, and I can't wait to see what you do in your career. Scott Blazak, what are you working on now?
I'm basically writing more features. I've kind of taken a turn into horror, though.
Fantastic.
So, yeah, kind of really exploring that genre and working on a couple different kind of feature scripts for horror. So I'm excited to see where that goes.
Oh,
and
I just wanted to add, I do great deaths. I've died in a few things. I'm really good if you need someone.
All right.
Yeah, and if you ever need a guy with dreadlocks, you know, I think a guy with dreadlocks makes every movie a little better in some way. You know, feel free to write me into. You know, fantastic. Any final words about Parallel?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I would say that I'm excited to see it go out to the audience. I do feel like it's a movie that would be it would be good for people, like people would enjoy it on their second watch, because I think you kind of talked about how it's a little bit of a complicated ride at times, and I think that there are things you might catch on the second time around. So I'm just curious to hear the dialogue after people have seen it.
Well, I can't wait to give it a second watch personally, because it is that kind of film where it doesn't feel like you have to, you really want to, because now that you got you get it, you've been a part of that universe, you want to go back and you know, see it with the foreknowledge. So I think you guys definitely put together a winner, and I wish you luck. Last but of course not least, Isaac Ezban, what are you working on next?
Well, I'm going to try to keep it brief, but I just want to say, first of all, those horror scripts, Scott, please send them along. I'd love to read them, even if just to give you my thoughts, or to work again with an amazing screenwriter like yourself.
That would be an amazing collaboration.
And to what Georgia said about how she is good dying in films, I can speak that Georgia always wanted to do her own stunts. You know, it was very hard in Vancouver. They cared a lot about the safety, as they should, as everywhere we should care about the safety of the actors, of everyone involved. But she was always like, no, I can do it. I can slide in the ground again. It's all right. Like and it's always, when you're working with an actor like that, you're like, you also as a director feel more like she's taking one worry out of your mind. Like, she can do this, you know, she's all right for this. So I'd love making a horror movie with Georgia one day, with music by Edy, by the way. And so what I'm working on now, I have some projects both in Mexico and in the US. Like everyone, of course, 2020 suddenly knocked on the door, and I was going to shoot this horror movie actually this year. We were going to start shooting in the summer, then it got delayed till November. Now it got pushed till next year. So that's happening for sure next year, but maybe in the second semester of the year. And at the same time, I have two other projects which I'm working on. I have actually two horror movies I'm working on in Mexico, and two movies I'm working more in the US. And the ones in the US are more sci-fi oriented. So I'm kind of like trying a little into horror as well, but I also have my sci-fi roots well grounded. So the two I have in the US, one is a script I wrote myself, and the other one is a story I wrote myself, and then I collaborated with another writer on the script. And hopefully one of those, or maybe two of those, will happen either next year or in the next few years. So that's what I'm working on.
Well, fantastic. I mean, like Edy said, and like anyone who watched this panel can see, you're a very passionate artist, and anything you put that passion behind, I think is going to be fantastic. So I can't wait to follow your career. We're about out of time, but do you have any final words about Parallel? Yes, coming to theaters this Friday, December 11th.
Yes, I'm actually excited. I just saw the theaters list, and I'm surprised. There's a lot of theaters, even in the COVID situation. People can even watch it in LA. It's playing in a drive-in in LA. It's playing in New York, in New Jersey. It's playing in many cool cities. So check out for the movie in theaters or watch it at home. It's going to be on iTunes, Amazon, Google, all the platforms, and Apple TV Plus and all that. And I hope you enjoy it. This weekend, it will be a pleasure taking you all on a ride across many universes, and I hope you enjoy the ride. And something I want to say, the movie goes super fast. So I heard Nacho Vigalondo saying this once at Fantastic Fest when he introduced, I think it was Open Windows. And I think this also applies to this movie. Don't go to the bathroom because you will miss like 2 or 3 twists just while you go to the bathroom. Because the movie goes super fast. There are many things happening. I mean, you might come back and you will see like, wait, what happened with this character? So don't go to the bathroom. Just enjoy the movie and let us know what you think when you watch it. We'll be excited to hear it.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you all so much. It's been an incredible evening. Thank you for tuning in to this panel with the creatives from Parallel, being released this Friday, December 11th. An incredible sci-fi thriller that'll have you thinking and it'll have you lining up for a second viewing pretty darn quick. Thanks again to all of my guests. Thanks to my team at Dread Central, and thanks to the community and everyone who tuned in tonight. Truly, truly worthwhile experience. Good night, everyone, and have a great evening.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
To our new house. Woo!
Well, I told you that house you guys are renting had bad energy.
This is a fake.
What?
Come check this out.
There's like a staircase back there.
I'm pretty sure we lost our deposit.
Whoa.
Maybe someone lived up here like a squatter.
Whoa.
What the? What are you doing? No, wait.
Oh my God.
I saw us.
Us here with
Yes, I watched this for like 15 minutes. You were gone for like 5 seconds.
Stop.
1 minute here equals 3 hours there.
Each time you go through, it's like it resets the timeline.
I think it's parallel universes.
Holy
This is the biggest unfair advantage in human history.
Or we just steal other people's ideas.
I found it in an alt this morning.
Can I show you something?
Things could get messy.
Just because this is tragic doesn't mean we stop thinking.
He's not himself. He's breaking the rules.
We gotta do something about it. I got a storage unit full of stuff that'll set off revolutions.
We'll take a world by storm. Something's behind all this.
But we all know that you ain't that good.
He's a real person.
Is he?
You've crossed a line.
We crossed the line.